Hi, my name is Tonia Jahshan, and I am the founder and president of Sippology by Steep Tea. And today we're going to talk about how did this company start? Well, it started almost 14 years ago when my husband and I were just newlyweds, and we were only married for 6 months. We decided we wanted to have children right away, and luckily we actually got pregnant right away. But unfortunately, 12 weeks into that pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. And so that miscarriage took us on a little trip all the way to the east coast of Canada, Nova Scotia. And I booked us into a bunch of little bed and breakfasts, and the first one that we were at was in Halifax. And that morning, they served us the most amazing loose leaf tea called Cream of Earl Grey. Everything about this tea made me happy. The smell of it, the taste of it, even the looks of this tea made me happy. And I remember saying to the owner, where did you get this tea from? Because I've never experienced a cup of tea like this before. And he said, oh, I got it in a little shop down in Mahone Bay. And so Mahone Bay was not on our itinerary at all, but I said to Haddam, I said, we cannot leave this trip without getting some of this tea. Now, I've always been a tea drinker, and so has Haddam, but it was always Tetley with a splash of milk, and I really thought that was great tea until. So we got to this tea shop, gathered a whole bunch of this loose leaf tea, and we brought it home to our friends and family. And I started serving it to them, and they were blown away. And it was at that moment I thought, you know, I'm just going to start a little hobby business, a tea party business, to get the awareness of how great loose leaf tea tasted compared to tea bags. Because back then, there was really nobody selling loose leaf tea. It was, you know, when people thought of loose leaf tea, they thought, oh, it's messy, you've got those balls which you have to stuff in your tea, and then they expand too much, and then the tea pops out. It was just a mess. But I was on a mission that I was going to find products that would make the loose leaf tea experience much, much better. So I came home, started researching where I was going to get this tea from, and came up with the name Steep Tea. And in October, it was October the 27th, I'll never forget it, and I had a grand opening for my company. And I invited all my friends and family there, and there was about 15 of them, and I said, okay, gave my presentation, you know, I had scones laid out for them and made it like a high tea party. And then I asked the golden question, who's going to book a party for me? Nobody. Nobody in that room wanted to book a party for me. And that's not because they didn't believe in me. I think that they just didn't want to be the first ones to join me on this adventure. So I had to go and look elsewhere. Where was I going to get this first party under my belt? Because I knew if I could get one person to host a party for me, that I could convince those people there to host one for me too. So I decided I was going to have an open house at my home. It was November, it was around Christmas time, and I brought on a whole bunch of products that I could make baskets with, and I made 100 baskets full of tea and products. I was so convinced that this open house was going to have hundreds of people there that I convinced my mother to make 100 dozen shortbread cookies. Can you imagine how much butter goes into 100 dozen shortbread cookies? A lot. Well, that weekend came and went, and 2 people showed up. And so I was a little devastated, I won't lie, and my mom was a bit like, whoa, what did I just do? I just baked 100 dozen shortbread cookies, and Haddam, well, he thought I was a little crazy. But I didn't let it get me down. I thought, I can find that one person. And you know what? I did. 2 weeks later, my best friend from BC called me and said, hey, my cousin in Cambridge, Ontario wants to have a party for you. And so I thought, this is my opportunity. This is it. So I gathered all of my baskets and my mother's shortbread cookies, and I went to that home, and there were about 15 to 20 women there, all ready to shop. And I sold a ton of those baskets, and I also sold a lot of my mother's shortbread cookies, but more importantly, I booked 8 parties from that event. And those 8 parties turned into 15, and then those 15 turned into 20. And come mid-March of the following year, so literally 4 months later, I was doing up to 20 parties a month. And I was pregnant again. And this time we knew that the pregnancy was going to work out. We just, everything was coming back really positive. So my long-term plan was 5 years that I was going to turn this into a direct selling company and offer this opportunity to other people. But that got squished into literally 8 months. So we incorporated the company in April and made a professional catalog and brought on our very first consultant, Kim Dixon. And in September, from that year, from September to like 4 years later, we hustled it hard in the Ontario market and started to break into other provinces of Canada as well. And you know what? I really thought we were doing extremely well. I mean, the sales were really high. We were growing year after year after year. I remember I was in Cambridge doing a party and I was driving home, and this song came on. It was called Glamorous from Fergie. I don't know if you guys remember that song. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm glamorous. I'm going to fly high. I'm going to make millions of dollars. But there was a rude awakening around the corner for me because a month later, Hadim sat me down and he said, we need to talk. And I thought, uh-oh. He goes, okay, I have good news and I have bad news. I said, okay, what's the good news? He said, the good news is that you and a small team of women are selling like over $250,000 worth of tea every year, which is amazing. He goes, but here's the bad news. You don't know how to handle finances at all. He goes, we are $80,000 in debt because of your tea hobby. So I don't think we can continue this journey together. And I remember thinking, okay, that's not what I needed to hear, because I knew how much the women loved this business and how it was making a difference in their lives, not just socially, but financially. And so I said to him, well, what can I do to change your mind? And he thought about it for a second. He said, well, if you can sell 500,000 by this time next year, so a year later, I will sell off everything that I'm doing. I will join you as CEO of Steep Tea, and I'll clean up the finances. So that year, it was the hustle year, and I was pregnant with my second daughter, Jenna, and I just remember we did so many trade shows that year. We brought on so many people, and a year later, we made that number. We were at like 501,000, like it was so close. And Haddon was like, okay, here we go. So that was the year that he joined the company full-time. And when Haddon joined the company full-time, that is when things really started to change. Because him and I make such a great partnership. I am, all about the marketing, the sales, and the relationships with the consultants. And he is all about the operations and finance and just making sure that everything is running in the background. And so the first thing that we did was we took this operation out of my house, because it was everywhere in my house. The basement was the, where we blended the tea. The garage was my shipping department. And we moved it into our very first warehouse, which was about 2,500 square foot warehouse. And that was one of the happiest days of my life. I felt like that was a moment when we were really, like, this was a real business. And so, fast forward a couple of years later, we're growing. We grew out of that space, by the way. We had to move into another space, which was 5,000 square feet. And I was now pregnant with my third son. And the U.S. started knocking on the door. When are you going to come to the U.S.? I would love to be your first consultant. And my initial reaction is always, yep, let's do it. We're going. Let's open up the U.S. And I remember saying to Haddon, I said, we need to go into the U.S. right now before someone else, does it ahead of us. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, we can't, because we have just enough capital to support the Canadian growth, not a U.S. growth. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is just not what I wanted to hear. And so I was like thinking, how can we do this? How can we do this? And I was on Facebook and I was scrolling through my news feed, and who pops up? Dragon's Den. Dragon's Den pops up, and they announced that they were coming to Hamilton, my hometown, to do auditions. And it wasn't even, I didn't even have a second thought. I thought, yep, we're doing this. We're going on Dragon's Den. We're going to get on that show. And I remember going to Haddon and saying, okay, I got it. I know what we're going to do. We're going to go on Dragon's Den. And he was like, are you crazy? We're not going on Dragon's Den. First of all, we don't have time. Second of all, I don't want to be called a cockroach on, national television in front of 2 million people by Kevin O'Leary. And I thought, Adam, we can do this. I really think that this could be a good opportunity for us. Well, we went to the auditions. We really blew their socks off at the auditions, and they gave us the phone call saying, we want you to pitch to the Dragons. And so we had a month to get ready for that pitch to the Dragons, and we did everything in our power to make sure that it was going to be a really solid presentation, from knowing our numbers, from making sure the set that we had was beautiful for the audience, and it worked. So we got on the show, we created a bidding war between all 5 dragons, and we ended up partnering with Jim Treliving of Boston Pizza and David Chilton of The Wealthy Barber. And it has been such a whirlwind. They're still partners in this company till today, and they love this company. And one of the biggest reasons why they love this company is because it creates entrepreneurship. Our business is what Dragon's Den is all about. It's about creating entrepreneurs. So they've been really, really happy with their investment in Steep Tea. So fast forward, as you can imagine, it went crazy. The 3 or 4 years after Dragon's Den, because we were on that show 4 more times with updates, and we were in a commercial, and it created so much buzz, and we were in all kinds of magazines and won a lot of awards. It was really an exciting time. So here we are in 2020, and we are now Sippology by Steep Tea. And we went from that amazing loose leaf tea, cream of Earl Grey, to today where we have 5 amazing lines of products. We have our kombucha line, which we launched almost 2 years ago. We have our Heal Thyself line, which it took us 2 years to develop this line. It is a line of medicinal teas that is governed by the Government of Canada. Everything from indigestion to sleep issues to keeping yourself calm to constipation. Whatever it is, there's probably a tea that we sell that will help you with that ailment. Then we have our fun line, which is our bubbly tea and our color changing teas, and we have a line of seasonings, and we have a line of scone mixes, and we have a really big line of matcha. So now it's up to you, our amazing Sippologists out there, and you have an opportunity to really be a part of the next wave of history, the next 10 years. What's that going to look like? It's really exciting, and I can't wait for us to do it together.